Hi, I'm here with, introduce yourself.
My name is Craig Andre Hamilton.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, let me go. What I'll do is this. That's better. All right. Adjust just a little bit. All right, go ahead and continue. How did you learn about Occupy?
I was in between housing, and I have a couple friends who helped organize with the organizers of the initial General Assembly, and I was passing through. So I showed up there the end of the first day after the first rally on Friday, and I met a very nice person who shared her tent with me, and she moved on and I was left the tent. And backtracking a bit, the Monday of the first General Assembly, I also continued on to a sorting committee that assembled the first contact list of each of the committees.
Well, that's awesome. Is this the first activism you've ever been involved in?
Formally.
Formally?
Yes.
Well, that's great. So I guess then we're obviously part of the camp and all that. So are there any experiences that you take away from that you'd like to share?
I spent 30 days in that park. It's very, very difficult to whittle down those 30 days into a few paragraphs without writing a book first. I met a lot of very interesting people that I would say otherwise didn't physically exist on this earth. People that I would say are likened to those I read in books. There's a lot of information that was passed around, both practical and referential. A lot of things were put in perspective for me. And throughout the occupation at the park, that is, I grew as a person, spiritually, mentally, so on. And to this day, I'm standing on the shoulders of myself, and that myself standing on, I guess, just other people that I've met, bits and pieces.
Well, that's really awesome. I know, like, for me, for example, the first time I went to the park, I spent a weekend with you guys, and then I immediately felt homesick when I went to my actual home. I felt homesick for coming back to the park. There was a very, positive vibe, and I'd have to say that it was the best part about it would have to just be that it was great to be surrounded by people who, were also socially conscious, because, people like us who actually think about the world tend to be kind of the quote-unquote outcasts. That's how we feel the whole time, and then to be surrounded by them, and then ironically to be in a situation where someone who isn't socially conscious would actually be the minority, it was actually very, very refreshing.
Right. Before then, I would admit that I'm a bit of a worldly person. I traveled up and down the East Coast before I came to college, and when I went to college and then subsequently dropped out, I was a gypsy for about a year before Occupy started. Worked on a farm. I met people around the world. I've heard different ideas, opinions, policy, truth. Many words you would define as someone, I guess, making a statement and had their own perspective on things. And being at the park was an opportunity to kind of lay all of our perspectives and policies and truths on a table, so to speak, on a platform, and kind of conversate on what was on that table. For myself personally, I felt that it was a godsend that this was happening in Detroit, more or less in the United States, and not somewhere else away in the world that I would be reading about, that I was actually there. And I feel very blessed, lack of a better word, that I could kind of grow from that situation.
So now, I mean, I guess you could say that Occupy Detroit has given your life new direction?
It reinforced it. I was already on a path that I would say is spiritually motivated, almost naturally. So this happening now, I would admit, really did propel, supercharge that motion. They personify this, characterize this, sorry, as a movement, and I just synchronized with it rather naturally.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Can you think of any specific memories that, like, you know, maybe one particularly moving memory of your time so far involved with this movement?
October 21st, 2011.
And what took place?
A lot of things, both in and out of that park. One, for those keeping record, that was the Bank of America motion, the rally that made headlines, that occupied Detroit, gathered people in solidarity is the word they use, against Bank of America, their motives. One of the quotes that they were, I guess, noted by saying it was, whose streets, our streets.
Mm-hmm.
And in the park where I wasn't at that rally, I noticed something very beautiful. From the beginning of that day, before there was a very, very powerful rainstorm that, so to speak, washed everything away, the people and a lot of our belongings. I could go on and describe to you in very vivid detail, but I don't believe anyone has the time. Again,
so I have actually heard from a lot of different occupiers that the first rain, major rain, was a big moment.
It was. It really defined who could physically stand up to why we were in that park.
Mm-hmm.
And the day after, the 21st, not only the rally was going on, but about 11:30, 12 o'clock, noon,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed something. People were speaking rather loudly to each other across the room. Various conversations were going on about, you know, an awakening happening. At least little did they know it was already happening. And at about 11:30, people stopped talking and listened and realized everyone was saying exactly the same thing. And I was there to listen to it. And everybody realized that they were on the same page and they were in the same movement.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a band that was setting up in the courtyard, and the sun rose right past the David Whitney building at the same time. I'm walking from the northeast corner of the park to witness this. As the band started up, band started to play, the people gathered, and they smiled, and they laughed. Some danced. Another person started to ride his BMX, started to flatland. For you, those who don't know, started tricks. People started skateboarding. People started laughing again. Then the news cut through the crowd that Obama promised the troops were going to be sent home. There was this enormous uproar, both in the park and on Woodward, on Adams, on Washington. This traffic came out of nowhere, and people was breathing again. And that went on for about 3 hours. At that level, everybody finally broke away from the camp, took a breather, and from that day on, it was a beautiful day. The night before was quite rough, and for that day to happen, it's nothing short of miraculous. Yeah, again, stop me if this is quoting from a book that I've yet to write, but I remember that day quite vividly, even the very moment. It's hard to explain without, painting a picture or having you there in a time machine or something, but that, I would say, is one of the most vivid moments. There's many, but of many of those, it was one of the most poignant turnarounds. of this movement, and for those who weren't there, realized that what was going on was nothing short of monumental and historic.
Definitely making part of history. I talked to a lot of people when I interviewed them, and they said that one of the most compelling parts about this was that they were part of something that was, historical, that would be remembered, and that's a powerful thing in of itself, you know. And you're an artist. I've seen some of your art, and it's interesting that, you kind of came to a point where you'd like to paint a picture, I think I'm going to issue a challenge right now that you should paint some kind of picture or draw a picture that kind of tries to illustrate how you felt that day, and then I'd love to share it with my viewers.
It might take me a while.
That's okay. All things worth doing are worth waiting for, so.
Right.
Thanks for being on.
Absolutely.